All right, this has been a long time coming, and I'm sick, by the way, getting better. I'll give my cold sound. But I've been wanting to close this chapter on this bike. It's probably be my last video on it. It'll probably be one more, just after the bike runs for a while. So in my very last video, I was I was having trouble with the cutting the valve seats. Like, it was literally just driving me crazy. And then of course I work every day, all day, and I get a few hours when I come in to work on it. And like, I was having such a hard time, and I'm like, this is simple, and it would cut them. And I finally figured out what I was doing wrong, and then thought I had it. And when I would cut them, it would do good and look good. And I put it in the valve, I could see a gap right around it, like completely not even seating. So I ended up, the kit that I bought, and I'll show you, because that's something else you need to see and be aware of when you buy these, when you buy the cheaper kits, the valve seat kits. And this is a set, Danish. This set, you've probably seen it. So I'm sure but you guys out there seen it come off of eBay, like 157 bucks or whatever. It has the potential to be a good kit. You got different colors, whatever. Your 30, 45, 60, there might be a 70 in that. But what is happening here, and I didn't realize this until I was really started, like, it was driving me nuts. Like, what the heck is going on? So I ended up chucking up this end in the lathe so I could turn it down to fit in my drill. And then when I put it on my drill, I could really see. So, of course, your handle, this piece screws in. You have different size valve guide pilots. And this screws into your piece for your handle. And, of course, you get a T-bar. I'll put that on in just a second. I'll show you what I'm talking about here. And then say your cutter. That goes on. If you were doing this one here, is actually a 45. And you can spin that around and cut actually straight down square on the valve. And this would be your cutter. The handle. So what's happening here when they make this, I didn't determine, when I chucked this thing up in the lathe, I took and touched off with my tool cutter right up against the 45, just touching. And then I rolled the chuck around, and I can do a little clip in the video on this too. When the next tooth hit, it was 50 thousandths off. I'm like, wow, that's a big difference. So I messaged this guy and tell him, hey, these cutters are crap, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, nah, I don't need to send you a video of how to use them, like, whatever. So, he says, if this tooth is higher than this tooth or whatever, it would still work because this is what's considered to be a live pilot as it comes around. Yeah, that is true. And that would work. But the problem is, when this threads on, it's not concentric with the pilot. It's basically a circle that's off. So you get that wobble. I'm being a little dramatic there, but that's what it's doing. And it's doing it almost 50 thousandths. And that's a big deal. So shoot a little video of this running and spinning in the drill, and you can just see it wobble. Look at the damn warp in that, son. One problem to another. And that's what it is. Yeah, if the teeth was off higher or lower, as long as it was concentric. If the cutter was concentric where it was drilled and tapped and bored to the bore pallet, it would probably work. But it's not. So be aware of that when you do buy the new kits. I didn't want to buy the new kit because the new kit, the good kit, I'm sorry, New Way has a really good one. It's like $1,400 for that kit, 13 and some change. I think China has a cheaper version of that that's pretty close to it for $300 or $400, but I didn't want to take the chance again with the cheap stuff after this. So I decided to chuck this up on the lathe, and I had a resin diamond wheel that I would come in and cut it down and move it, measure my height. I had a gauge rigged up to measure my height, and I got this working a little bit better, but in the end, it's crap. It's just what it is. I end up lapping the valves way more than what I should have to get it to work. So that's just one of the problems. The other problem, after I finally got that I run into and fixing to put the head back together, was the cams tight. So under research, I started seeing that this evidently is a problem with these bikes these years, and certain, ones will have this problem. And the cams were so tight, when you would literally set the cam down in the head, you couldn't even spin it. Even before you even put the cam cap on, you put the cam cap on and tighten it down. It was locked. You couldn't even take two hands and spin it. You had to take a pair of freaking pliers to spin it. So my brother, he's a machinist. I spent some time in the Navy as a machinist. I called him over, said, I want you to come and, just double check this and see what you think. So we mic out the cam bore. Comes up with a 25 thousandths difference from one side of the cam bore from the intake to the exhaust was 25 thousandths difference, and it was the intake that was binding more than the exhaust. So I made a tool. I pondered on it. I made a tool on the lathe, and I spent some time thinking about it. I'm like, well, I've got a bearing in each side of that cam cap. When I put the cam cap on, I have a bearing there because I didn't have a machine to do this. I had to get creative. So this tool I made, I had to work out my measurements with the head, and I'll post a little clip of that, and it's showing you and explaining exactly what I've done. But this starts the size of the cam bore that was measured, that was there. And it gets to right here, and it steps up 25 thousandths. This end, in this section, I milled down to fit in the bearing. All right, and I started with the intake side. So that side of the bearing is smaller. And how this worked is, I would actually slide the bearing on, set it down in the head, and put the cam cap on. Then with this being the exact same size of the cam bore, I could get it started right there. The bearing was holding that spot, and that was sticking out enough for me to grab it with my drill. And then I could proceed to actually cut and go into it and take out 25 thousandths. Just taking a chance to see if it worked. It's either that or buy a new head. So this is just turned out to be, hey, will this work? Can you do it? How long will it hold up? Will it hold up? Well, I get that all done, and every problem you could think of through this bike, it seems like it's happened. Even from the tools that I buy, I gotta fix stuff I gotta fix. Before, when I had tried it and I put the cam chain on and the cam tensioner, come up perfect. It had the right amount of tension. This last time, I put everything back together, put it in time, and the cam tensioner, put it in, and it's just loose. No matter what I do, how much I tighten it, the cam chain is just loose. I'm like, well, do I need to get a new cam chain? It's crazy. It was just tight. The bike run for literally 1 minute. So I made on your cam tensioner, there's a spring in there, and then there's like a little pin that's quite a bit shorter than the spring. I milled down a pin that was longer, and I played with it a little bit. I've done a few different steps until the right amount. I put it in there and check it and got the right amount of tension. So far, that's how it's held up, and we'll see how that holds up in the future. As of now, the bike is running and running good. So I'm going to see how long this will hold up. I'm going to torture this thing out and see if this will hold up. I'm really curious. But to do this, and when I first cut this tool, I'll let you get a good shot of it here. You know, this was just round stock steel I had laying around. I didn't put enough relief, like I didn't have this cut out as much, and I didn't have enough relief in there to actually, when I cut, to actually grab and cut the metal. So the first side that I done, it did not do well, and it actually drug a little bit. So I redefined my cutter, and I cut on the exhaust side. Beautiful. So I actually run it back through on the intake side, and it cleaned it up pretty well. Another problem that I had, and I think I've got this, where I can throw some clips at this end. The cam cap on one side has an oil vein that comes around and will allow oil to get on top the cam. The other side does not. All right, so check this out, man. I've mic'd down the cams, all right, with mic. They're dead on. Polishing out didn't really make that much difference. And I'm sitting here looking. So let me get this camera. All right. Right here on this head, there's an oil port right here. That comes up right here, and it feeds both ways. All right. That comes around. When it's capped off, it'll come down in this bolt. Okay. And there's a slot on each side. This side is cut away and somewhat of a groove. There's no cutaway on for this bearing over here. And then it's almost like in the casting, you turn it around like this side. You can see that right there. This cutaway right here. Alright, and then it falls down and it runs in these channels on the bottom. Same way on this side. See, it runs in that channel and it runs up under the camshaft for the lube. Alright. That sets. My camera angle's all screwed up here. And that sets right on there, just like that. Okay. If you line it up perfect, it'll be sitting like that. That port, which the oil comes up and flows both ways, that one is channeled out, and that's the side the one bearing has no problem with. It's spinning freely. This side isn't channeled out, and that's the problem with the cam. That's the side where the camshaft is tight.
That's crazy. Well, that's just got me puzzled why that's not out, channeled out for that oil to get over there. I'm wondering if that bike failed because of that. I'm wondering if that is a flaw, that it never got milled out. I don't know, man. It's got me puzzled right now.
That really doesn't make any sense to me. It almost seems like a flaw by Kawasaki or the Japs or the engineer that was designing. They have it all the time. It's very possible for it to happen. So I hand cut, well, I say hand cut with a Dremel and a diamond wheel, a vein on the other side, and I've done it on both sides actually, on the top of it. One has a passage around, but it does not have a vein across the top. It does on the bottom. If you look on that head, on where those cams sit, there's a clear channel vein for the oil. Nothing on the top, but on the, I believe it was the exhaust, it might have been the exhaust side, it had a port that run around that allowed oil flow, but not on the other side, and I'll show that. So I cut these grooves in for oil passage. So far, the bike has run today really good. I put a new piston in it. I put a fresh set of rings, piston. Of course, I've done the valve guides, valve seats, new valves, and I run the bike for a little while. I let it cool down, let the ring seat run it just long enough, let the ring seat, let it cool down. And then I fired it back up, and I run the bike pretty hard for a while, and it's held up. So tomorrow my plans is to ride the bike and try my damnedest to just give it everything I can throw at it and see if this holds up. So there's probably a lot of guys out there, and I know there's a few on YouTube that I've seen that's had this problem with the tight cams in the head, and I think a lot of them will just trash the head and throw it. And there is, I think, one that I've seen, the guy takes, of course he's got a milling machine, and he mills out the head and he puts in a bigger bearing. Seems like he mills it out much bigger and does actual bearings instead of the cam bore on these heads is just polished, and the cam rides right on that polished port, which is fine. It seems to work fine. They hold up for the most part. It's just mysterious how these heads, aluminum expands and contracts a lot, and heat. I mean, like when aluminum is 200 degrees, it can move as much as 15,000, which is amazing. Now that's testing under certain types of aluminum on certain things, and I don't know if it'll do that much in the head. And I think steel at 200 degrees will move about 4 thousandths at the most. So there's a big difference. But if it moves, it will move back, expand and contract. How these get that tight and out of the blue just tighten up, because this seems to be a problem. I've seen like many blogs on this on the internet where guys has had the cams so tight they can't even move them and they trash the head. So I made it a point just to see what I could do. Try, just try and see if it'll work. Now, had I redefined my cutter to start with and really took my time more, I could have cut, because my first cut wasn't that great. And the second one was, it just cut beautifully. So if anybody out there ever decides to do that, spend time with the cutter. And I'll try to post a clip and explaining everything along in this video exactly how I done that. All right, so I got it made. I don't know how this is going to show up. I can't see up top. I mounted the camera up top, so hopefully you're getting a good view. This is the side I'm going to be cutting, and what I got set up is just going to slide on that bearing. All right. Bearing is going to sit where it would typically sit at. And this is the size of the cam, just a little bit under, so it starts to spin freely. And I'm going to lock down the cam plate and torque it down to spec, just like this.
And then I'm gonna begin to cut. That's gonna hold me true. This is gonna hold me concentric. And I'm gonna begin to cut and advance through there. So I set up on the lathe, as you seen earlier, cut these reamer like with my carbide tool, just advancing, locking, advancing and locking. So that's the setup. I believe that's gonna work out pretty good.
I'll do a later video of how the bike holds up so far. So far it's held up great today, and I've really dogged out on it. So it's been a long ordeal with work and trying to get this bike done. I could have had it long done had I just bought a new head and bought new stuff, or just went through it completely and bought all the things I need and not actually try to fix the things the old school way or the slow way or the cheap way, so to speak. Like, you know, when you have no way out and you don't have nothing, you don't have much, try to fix it that kind of way. Yeah, so that's what I done. And I did have a lathe, and that has helped me tremendously. I've done a lot of things to, like, unbelievable amount of things that lathe can help you on. And the valve seats was one of them as well. Milled down the valve seats the size I needed when I put them in and pressed them in. I think that was in one of my videos. But it helped me out tremendously. And I have a bigger lathe now. And I'm going to do a video on that, of course. For some reason, I've got a lot of green here lately. Maybe I'll get some money, but that's it right there. It's the 1962 South Bend. And she's a beast. I've been working on her and cleaning her up, and there's some things I want to do to it. And of course, I have my little mini lathe, and I still like it. It comes in handy. So the bike, which is, and I've actually acquired another bike. So this one here is a 2018 kx250 4-stroke. 09, this is the one I'm doing these videos on. 09 kx250 4-stroke, carbureted, fuel injection. So I had got the bike from my neighbor that came here and stayed for my neighbor's son, and he stayed for a while, and the bike had broke a valve guide, and so he headed back out, and he wanted to sell the bike, and he was leaving. And so the bike had been tore down and sitting in the weather with the head off, and I've been flushing the bike the whole time I was just beginning to work on it. So it's a big ordeal. There's a lot of little things that I've done to the bike, a lot of stuff missing. There was strip bolts and all the good stuff. But hey, it's done. So I'm glad to make this video and have this chapter over, and I'll make one more. Maybe we're gonna do some hard runs with this bike and see just how to hold up. And I hope this helps somebody, and I'll see you on my next challenge. Have a good one.